Hi, this is Ant LaFave. Call sign is November Uniform 1 Uniform, and today I'm going to show you how to connect your IC9700 up to your PC so that you can run both WSJT X and SatPC32 at the same time. I'm going to assume that you already have the IC9700 set up with SatPC32, and this video is just to get you over the hump so that you can use WSJTX at the same time. So first off, you're going to click on Menu on the radio and click Set, then go to page 2 and click Connectors. Connectors is where everything's going to take place. So we're going to click Connectors, and then we're going to go to page 2. Mod Input is the first thing that we're going to select. So Mod Input, and on page 2 here, Data Mod. Make sure that's set to USB. So there's a whole bunch of options. USB is the one that you want. Go ahead and click back. The next one that we're going to select here is going to be USB send keying. So that's on page 3 of your connectors menu. Click on that. And this USB send, B is going to be your second COM port. So you can see in the options here, there's off, and then the USB-A, DTR, USB-A, RTS, and then you have the same options for B. DTR will work as well, but I selected RTS when I first configured this, so that's what I selected here. And I'm going to show the rest of the video that setting as well, so if you want to follow along, USB-B RTS is what you want to select. Everything else should be off. This inhibit timer at USB connection, if this is on, there's going to be a 5-second delay before you actually transmit anything. That's bad. So you want to turn that off. Settings are on, off, select off. So we're going to go back here. The next setting that you want to do is CIV, and you're going to want to make sure that your settings here for CIV transceive is off. Next here, unlink from remote, make sure that's set. The next one we're going to have is CIV data echo back off. I believe everything else you keep the same because you want SatPC32 to run correctly. So if you change some of these settings, just make sure that SatPC32 still works after you've made these settings changes. You shouldn't have to mess with anything but those on-off settings that I had said. So CIV transceive off, unlink from remote, make sure that thing's set, and then CIV data echo back off. I believe those were the things that I set. Next one you want to do under connectors is USB-B data function. Click on that. So the B function is going to be off. The data function is going to be CIV. So there's a whole bunch of different options here. CIV is what you want to select. Click back on it. GPS out is off. And RIDI decode, I guess everything else doesn't matter. So off, CIV, and off. That's it. That's what you need to do in order to configure your radio so that you can run WSJTX and SatPC32 at the same time. Another thing that I want to show you here is, and we're going to configure that in SatPC32, but sometimes the radio doesn't like it. You want to have upper sideband and lower sideband actually be upper sideband data and lower sideband data. Those of you familiar with the IC-7300, if you're running WSJTX, the data modes which you want to use in order to have that USB cable work. So to manually set it, you would click on the LSB, lower sideband, and then select data. And now you're going to see LSB-D. Filter, you're going to want the filter to be 1 because you want the widest filter possible for when you're going to be having that information sent over to WSJTX. So that's what I set it to, and you can do the same thing here. Click on upper sideband data, and that's filter 1 as well. That's how you manually set it. You should be able to also set it in SatPC32, and it'll just pop up over here to the right setting. But if it doesn't, and you select CAT control on SatPC32, just make sure that both of these are shown. If it's not, just click on it and select data, and then you're ready to go. All right, so now what we want to do is configure SatPC32 to work with WSJTX. And the first thing that we want to do is verify what port we are using for SatPC32. We're going to click Setup, then Radio Setup, and you can see that my Icom IC-9700 is using COM port 4 for SatPC32. And if we click on Device Manager, there's two ports here, COM port 4 and COM port 5. They look the same, except they're just assigned two different ports. So the Icom IC-9700 displays two ports to the computer when you connect it up. COM 4 is the main one, COM 5 is going to be your secondary one. So, well, your COM port actually is going to be, or could be, different than mine. So make sure you go into Device Manager and figure out what COM ports you're using, okay? The primary one, whatever you have the radio set to, is going to be for SatPC32. The other one is going to be your secondary one used by WSJT X. So we'll minimize this and we'll click Cancel on this. What we want to do now is we want to set in our CAT here the ability to switch into the mode to run from the data port. So we'll click on this question mark here, go to Auxiliary Files and Doppler SQF. If you've never seen this file before, what this allows you to do is set the center frequencies for your satellites, and then from there you can spin the knob or use SatPC32 in order to change the frequency as you see fit. What we're doing here with RS-44 is taking this line, which is my primary line, and I've adjusted for the frequency that's off just a little bit from the published frequencies, and we're going to copy it and then make another line underneath, a brand new line that is identical, except for instead of USB LSB, it's going to be USB-D LSB-D. And that's probably a little bit small for everybody to see, so let me make this bigger. You have these two lines. And RS-44 is just an example. So what you have here is the first line, which is your regular voice, USB, LSB, upper sideband, lower sideband. And then on this line here, you have upper sideband data, lower sideband data. And then you're going to save the file. So File, Save, and then you're going to close this. When you make any edit in that file, you need to close SatPC32 and reopen it in order for it to take effect. So we're going to close it, and then we're going to reopen it. And I'll bring it over to this monitor here. All right, so the next step here is click on CAT. Oh. First, let's select the satellite. Okay, so RS-44 for me is J. So RS-44, we want to click on CAT, and now you can see that there's two options here. There's the option to run regular upper sideband, lower sideband voice mode, and then the data mode. So when you select the CAT control up here like you normally would, it's going to default to the first one. But here we want the second one to work. So we're going to click on that and then click Continue. So now we're going to take a little ride. My camera might get a little bit shaky because I'm going to take it off of its mount. And I'm going to show you the radio. So the radio is set to upper sideband, lower sideband. And let's get a scope on there because I like the scope. All right, switching back over here, we're going to, again, just to show you, we have the second one selected, the upper sideband data, lower sideband data. And when we click CAT, going to slide over here, and you can see that lower sideband data flipped over correctly. Sometimes they both will. I don't know why. Sometimes it's finicky and both won't. So to manually do it, you click on upper sideband and then you click data. All right, now you're good to go. So SatPC32 is configured so that you can do CAT control and have it running through the PC so that WSJTX will be able to do push to talk and receive the audio. So that's step one. Step two is WSJTX coming right up. Now we're on to the settings of WSJT X. After opening up the program, you're going to want to go to File and then Settings. And you're going to enter your call here. The reason why I haven't entered my call there is in case somebody copies this verbatim. I don't want them having my call in there. So you put your call in here and your grid square. And the boxes that I've ticked are TX message to RX frequency window, double click on call sets TX enable, calling CQ forces call first, and allow TX frequency changes while transmitting. You may want to change some of these, but these are the ones that I've used in the past with success. TX watchdog is usually defaulted to 6 minutes because you don't want to have your radio calling for an eternity, especially if someone's not calling you back or you keep calling CQ and nobody answers. Satellite passes shouldn't be a big deal, but you can change this setting to be longer or shorter depending on how you want it configured. The next tab we want to go to is radio. Your rig is going to be none. The reason why your rig is none is because you don't want CAT control. SatPC32 is controlling your CAT, so you don't need anything set up here. But what you do want is you do want push to talk set so that the program can key up your radio when it wants to transmit FT4 data. So in the video earlier, I showed you we had COM port 4, which was being controlled by SatPC32, and COM port 5 is going to be controlled here. So with RTS going, that's the selection that I made. You could also do the DTR if you had set that in your radio, but we're doing RTS. So my COM port's 5. If I click test PTT, and let's see if I can turn this thing here without breaking anything, you can see my transmit turns right on the radio. So I turn that off and we're good to go. Okay, so that worked. The next thing you want to do is go over to audio, and in here the USB audio codec for both microphone and speakers should be selected. So what that's going to do is the audio that's coming from the radio is going to come in on your microphone here, and then sending out to the radio is going to be output through your speakers here. So that's how the FT4 data is going to be sent into WSJTX and out of WSJTX. And really that's all you need to do. If you are concerned about, for some reason, having the 70 centimeter band on your FT4, it's not there by default. What you got to do is click on frequencies, right click here and do insert, and then your mode, select FT4, and then put your frequency, and I do 440. So that's probably already there and it'll error out, but nope, it didn't error out. So now it's added to the list of FT4 frequencies. Not really a big deal because you don't really need to worry about what frequency you're on because SatPC32 is controlling it, not WSJTX. So we click OK there, and now everything is ready to go for a satellite pass. What I do on my waterfall down here is I set bins pixel to 3, and I select N, I believe that's short for average, 1. So what this does is it makes this waterfall a little bit wider on 3, and then on 1 it makes this waterfall move faster, so you can actually see in between transmit and receive a line of the FT4 data coming in from the radio. So why do I have 2 WSJTXs here? The reason why I have 2 is because 1 is for sending and 1's for hearing me when I'm sending. So one side's going to go uplink to the satellite and the other side's going to listen all the time on the satellite's downlink frequency. In order to configure this, what you have to do, and let me close out of this program here, is you need to have 2 icons on your desktop, one for opening the main one and one for opening up the secondary one. The difference in the two, if we right click on this shortcut here and go to properties, you can see that WSJTX just has its executable here. So it's wherever you installed it, and then wsjtx.exe. What you want to do is right click on that one and then click copy, right click on it and do paste. So it's going to make a copy. Now that copy that you created, you're going to edit that line. I'll delete this one because I don't really need that one there because I already did it. Right click on this and go to properties, and you'll see the target here has more information after it. So wsjtx.exe will then have a space, 2 dashes, the word rig, another dash, and then the word name equals none with a capital N. You could probably put something else in there. I don't know. This worked for me. But what that does is that allows you to open up 2 copies of WSJTX. One for sending and receiving, and then one for just receiving. So we'll click OK here, and we'll double click this guy here. And what that's going to do is that's going to open up our second WSJTX. Only for listening, this one won't transmit. So what we have here is we go up to File, Settings, and make sure, this can be all blanked out because we're not going to use it for anything, is that the audio is set to the codecs. So the output doesn't really matter because I'm not going to transmit, but we might as well do it anyway. And have both USB audio codecs, microphone and speaker. And now when you're transmitting to a satellite, click OK here. And actually, let me just show it to radio. So radio doesn't matter. Again, this tab doesn't matter. This tab doesn't matter. This tab is the one that matters because you want to have your audio in set to microphone USB audio codec. So click OK. Now here, again, you can select any of these. It does not matter what band you select for your FT4 data. Now you can see that I have FT8 set down here. You want to make sure if you're doing FT4, you actually go up to mode and select FT4. And you want to do that for both. If you're doing FT8, fine, but FT4 is quicker and we can use it on the satellites for making more contacts during the pass. So if I click on this and I click on 40 meter, then it'll show 70 centimeter, sorry, 70 centimeter, not 40 meter, 70 centimeter for listening and the 2 meter for sending and receiving. These frequencies here do not matter because even though you're making the contact in WSJTX, you are not going to submit your log from WSJTX because you're not making your contact on 2 meter or 70 centimeter. You're making it on the satellite. And WSJTX has no idea what satellite you're on. So in order to submit a log, all you need to do is use WSJTX for encode, decode, and then use another logger like TQSL from the ARRL in order to actually submit the log. But you do have a record that you made contact through WSJTX if you log it. So the next step is going to be showing you a actual satellite contact and being able to see myself on the decode. So that's up next. RS-44 is coming up. Here's where we put it all together. So we're going to go up to CAT and we're going to select the USB-D LSBD line here and click continue. Then we're going to turn on the rotator because I have a rotator, and then CAT control. So we turn that on, and if we go over to the radio here, we can see that it didn't set the top one correctly, so I just click on that like I said earlier, and then click data. All right, so it's doing its thing, and we don't really need that anymore except for the fact that I need to go to the frequency that I told others that I was going to be at. So let's get there. And where we're meeting is 145,938. Hopefully this won't be a lonely pass and I won't just see myself decoding, but I told some other folks that we'd be on. So now that we're set here and we're using Doppler correction for SatPC32, we move on over to WSJTX. And the satellite's still pretty low. It's only about 5 degrees and I have foliage around me, so we might not catch it for a little while. But I'm going to start calling CQ anyway. I have the radio set to 3% power. On 2 meter, that's only going to be 3 watts. So right now you can see I'm calling CQ. I'm transmitting. I'm not seeing anything over here yet, so I probably can't hit the satellite yet. Couple things down here while we're waiting is if you want to change your frequency over here, you hold the shift key, and then you click, and this red line here will move. That's where you're going to be transmitting. This green line you can move around, and that'll actually put whatever you're decoding in this RX frequency window here. If you don't have anything there, then, oh, let me stop here. Alt TX. So I'm getting some decodes from KC1 MMC, which means I was transmitting at the same time that he was transmitting. Actually, it doesn't even mean that. It means that I can see him down here on the waterfall, but I can't see me yet. So he's getting into the satellite better than I am. So what I'll do is I'll double click on him and see if I can make a contact. And right now, this side is transmitting, this side is receiving. When this isn't transmitting, you'll see both sides receiving, and that's why you can see right here. Look at that. There's me hearing myself on the satellite. I was calling to KC1 MMC, NU1U, while I was transmitting over here. So I could actually hear myself on the satellite in the receive window. He didn't hear me, so we're going to wait and see if he hears me so he can call me back. But over here, I'm transmitting and receiving. So if he calls me back, gets the next part of this FT4 transmission, then we're going to have an exchange. And he's calling CQ, can't hear me. I can hear me. It's looking like he changed. Oh, there we go. We're seeing it again. I was looking to see if he was actually calling at the same time I was calling. There we go. So you can see in this window here, I'm just listening, but in this window here, I'm sending and receiving. You want to have the second window open so you can see if you can hear yourself on the satellite. And you can see we just completed a contact. So KC1MMC, FT4, this gives you the date time stamp. It's not going to give you the correct information on the satellite, but all you're using WSJTX for is decoding and encoding and then confirming the contact here inside of its log. But that's not how you're going to upload the log. So we're just going to click OK. And we're going to see if he wants to respond to me or if anybody else is going to hop onto this. So now I can start calling CQ, see if he calls back to me. But if nothing else happens this pass, it's pretty cool. That's how you set up WSJTX so that you can hear yourself on the satellite all the time, and then you can send and receive over here. So that's, like I said, doesn't matter what these are set to. I can set it to 40 meter if I want. All it's doing is encoding and decoding. So these frequencies don't really much matter. WSJTX is just being used for encode, decode. SatPC32 is being used for CAT control. WSJTX is also being used for push to talk, so it can do that transmission. So that's WSJTX with SatPC32 for the Icom IC-9700. So one thing that I forgot to show was I can set the radio so that transmit is at 0%. So there's a 0% over here. Power bars all the way down, turn it up, turn it down, all the way down to 0. And if I go back to WSJTX, you can see when I'm transmitting, and right now we're receiving, but I'll wait for the transmit cycle, and I'll do erase here so you can see it coming through. So right now you can see it's transmitting CQNU1U FN31. It just decoded that. So I heard myself off of the satellite RS-44, and it's way out over here. So that's very, very cool using FT4. You don't even have to turn the power up on the radio at all in order to get perfectly clear decodes using FT4. Okay, so how do you log that contact? In TQSL for Logbook of the World, if you create an ADIF file for signing and uploading, just click on that. Enter the call sign of the station you made contact with. So let's do AB1 CDE. The date, so 2021. And today is August 4th. The time was, let's do 23:20 Zulu. Mode, FT4. So we're going to select FT4. There we go. The band is going to be 2 meter. So 2 meter was transmit, and then 70 centimeter was received. We're going to pick a satellite, and the satellite's going to be RS-44 because that's the satellite we made contact on. Fill in all that information, click Add QSO, click OK. Save the file as whatever you want to call it. So we'll call it RS-44 contact. Click Save. And then you sign and upload it like you normally would. So you made the contact, you logged it in TQSL, and then you're uploading it. WSJT X isn't what you're using for logging. It's just what you're using for encoding and decoding. I don't know if I've said that enough in this video, but just keep it straight in your head that WSJT X is not doing the logging, so you don't need to worry about doing dual frequencies with 2 meter and 70 centimeter because you're going to log it through a different logger.